Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of The Walking Dead. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So first and foremost, let's start off with everything in the Commonwealth. It is Eugene's trial. And obviously, Pamela's up there giving the performance of her life. Obviously, like, oh, my son. It's like, yes, she's legitimately heartbroken for her son, loss of her son. But, oh, she's painting this picture. And no matter what Yumiko's doing, it's not a fair system because, like, she's trying to object. The judge is like, yeah, it's like, of course the judge is going to be super biased. I'm assuming either it's just because keeping the status quo of what the Commonwealth is, she's kind of on board with that, or maybe she just rubs shoulders with Pamela like that anyway. A lot of like higher powered people are, but there are a lot of people like not just it, because a lot of the people, most of the people who have the biggest issues are those like high above and like in the bleeding seats. Who are like kind of watching from above because they're the ones that kind of want to see how this play out because they're the ones that kind of don't mess with like Pamela. Like it's like, right. And Pamela, ooh, she loves to spin it. She's like, oh yeah, it was altered. I'm like, the world being what it is, how would anyone be able to alter that considering like where technology is? I guess there's enough stuff work. I mean, like, that's why I'm like, I don't know there's accessible technology to allow someone to shift someone. Like, you need certain, like, editing software to do that, and you can't. It's like, yeah, but that's not my son's voice. It's like, once again, I'm like, why are we not talking about the crowd of people that were there who didn't help Sebastian either? Like, why aren't they on trial, you know? Like, no one would lift their hand because he sucked. You know, but the argument is like, well, they did that based on faulty misinformation about my son. So, and just like Yumiko's just looking at her like, look at you doubling down. Because she knows she can't even admit that, yes, the lottery is complete and utter BS. It's just her way to kind of make people feel like it's like, oh, like I have a better chance. It's like, once again, the line from Sebastian, no one's above their station. Like, everyone's going to stay in their regard. Everything's rigged to make people believe like, oh yeah, like my chance will come soon, you know? That everyone's going to get the both kind of literal and metaphorical golden ticket into Willy Wonka's factory. That's how this is going. And she can't admit it, because if she gives an inch to Yumiko in this situation, Yumiko can take that and run with it. Because the whole point of Pamela doing all this is to rein people back in. Yeah, there might be some dissenters here and there, but if she can, like, cut this off to the head, make people realize there's consequences, realize, like, right, this guy's a liar, he did all this stuff and killed my son for no reason, then she gains all the power back, and the rebellions that might be kind of like stirring a little bit will be completely quelled, and things will kind of go back to their status quo. It's like, I mean, it's hard to even say, like, is it even about Sebastian anymore? Is it more so just about you at this point in time? I mean, obviously, yeah, you're in your feelings, you're in your grief, understandable, but it's also, like, makes you wonder if, like, once again, if, like, this was always a part of who you were, it just took the right situation. I mean, once again, I think I brought that up in a previous review. Like, yeah, that conversation can be had about anybody that's like, oh, maybe this is who you really were. It just took the circumstances of the world coming to an end to kind of bring that out of you. It was always there to some extent, you know? But, yeah. But Yumiko's not in a favorable position, you know, in the court. I mean, it's like, also, like, it doesn't do you any favors when, like, the literal, you know, you have the literal mayor, Pamela, kind of speaking out against you. Like, it doesn't, how do you win against that? You know, it's like, it's her word and her words, and it was her son, and she carries so much weight that, like, everything's going to skew her way. And for Yumiko, it's like, yes, she was saying that who they were talking to wasn't even the judge. It's like, if we can get the people on our side to kind of rise up, but getting the people on your side is one thing. Getting the guards on your side is the other. Because people aren't able to just kind of do it. They can't break loose when the guards have such, like, a foothold. Like, company's going to, you know, have them, like, held back. It's like, right, until we can get the guards on our side, we can't get everyone on our side. As long as Pamela still has the loyalty of the guards. But then it's like, well, there's Mercer. Like, if we can sway him, then the rest could fall in place. But it's like, yeah, but Mercer, there's no... if he was going to do something, he would have done it long before now, because Max beseeched him to do something different. Princess wanted him to do something different, and he still refused to, because for him, it's like, yes, he recognizes the BS that this is, but this place means so much that he's like, we'll suck up the BS because of what this place represents. And it's like, because he also believes like, even if we do something, it won't change anything. Like, right. Once again, you came at Pamela and she's still standing. They're still supporters. She's still in power. She wasn't completely overthrown. In fact, now she might even have a tighter grip now, even going forward. So for him, he doesn't see any point of, trying to change anything, because he believes it won't change. And so, because it's like, right, maybe he doesn't know that Princess got taken. Yumiko talked to him about it, and it turned out he knew Princess got taken. And it just because, well, he already lost Princess because she walked away from him, and they had their final words like a couple episodes ago, and it's like, knowing like, right, that still wasn't enough to make him move, but she's like, I know this isn't who you really are. Like, the fact is that your sister believes that you can do the right thing if you choose to, but he won't make that move. Like, it's still, I think, because his duty is to protect the people, but it's also like, I think it's not looking at it like, right, you got to do what's best for the people, and Pamela's reign is not what's best for the people. And so ultimately, he's still like, refusing to budge. And ultimately, Eugene gives his parting words. And I love that, because it's all coming full circle. He's like, I've not always been a good guy, because he's like, me being who I am, I shouldn't have made it. I'm the type of person that shouldn't have made it like these past 10 years. Like, he's like, I've always been living on borrowed time. I've only made it this far because the kindness of friends and people who've affected me, who've changed me for the better. And he says, like, at one point in time, I got mixed up with a bad group, obviously referencing the Saviors, and even saying at one point that he was like, I was about protecting order and everything so much, and also there was a bit of self-preservation there, but it's like, yeah, I kicked it with this group, and he's like, I was so content with like keeping order, and which is like obviously a very direct parallel that's going on with Pamela, that he ended up sitting on the sidelines. He's like, I might not have swung the bat both. Obviously, like, everyone's going to probably think like, oh, metaphorically, it's like, no, he specifically used a bat because he meant it literally. So because of that, it's like, right, I still had blood on my hands. And for him, it's like, we might feel it in ourselves that, one person can't, but like, one person can. Like, all it takes is one person changing, and he ended up doing, it's like, it just takes one person doing the right thing, fighting for the right thing, seeing that something's wrong and fighting for it. That was his closing statement, and he still got found guilty at the end of it all. And ultimately, you see Max kind of looking at Mercer, because Mercer was there listening to Eugene's speech. And so we end the episode with Eugene, being walking down that hallway, and Mercer saying, "It's time to fuck shit up." Yeah. I was like, about time you did the right thing. Because once again, Mercer's not. I was like, don't tell me you're going to like sit on the sidelines the entire time. It's like, you're gonna be a dick in the end. Like, because you were presented like, oh my god, he's gonna be such a dick, and he ends up being a really good dude. And then it's like, oh, okay, like, right, it was there in your heart. You wanted to do the right thing, but you kept convincing yourself there was no point. So all it has to take is someone having the courage to go like, no, it's time for me to do the right thing, no matter what it is, So I thought that was kind of beautiful. So there's that side of things. Just like Maggie said, like, Pamela's not going to see it coming because she's going to get sideswiped in her own palace of sorts. Another situation we find ourselves in is the whole Lydia, Aaron, Elijah, and Jerry. They end up running into Luke, which I was like, hey, I was like, because you're done filming Fantastic Beasts, is that why? But I was like, because I don't know if, I'm not saying that, I don't know if that's the only thing he's been working on, or just the Fantastic Beast movies. But it's like, yeah, like him and his lady, or because they said her name in the episode, I forget. Is it Jules? I want to say it might have been Jules. But it's like, oh yeah, like, because they're completely disconnected from all the other plot, because they have no idea what's going on. But it's like, oh, like, Oceanside, yeah, it got taken over. I don't know what happened. It's like, oh, we had to deal with, yeah, it's like, yeah, but Pamela, like, backed out on it because, like, while you were going, some shit's going down. So, yeah, Eugene's on trial. People were kidnapped, like, grabbed. So, lots happened while they were going. So, they're on their way trying to make it to Alexandria, which is, like, that's where everything's kind of going down. So, but obviously there's guards on the road and stuff like that. And obviously, like, Rachel told them to, like, leave, but now Luke's kind of be like, we shouldn't have listened to her, we should have stayed and stayed and fought. But, luckily they've got Lydia with them because it's like, right, there's a horde that was nearby doing their thing. I'm like, you can't beat that tactic because, like, no one else knows how to deal with that. It's like that whisperer tactic. I mean, like, obviously it's gotten utilized over the course of this series, little by, like, Rick's group and stuff like that. I think some of the Fear people have used it. I believe some of the, World Beyond people have kind of utilized it as well, I believe. Maybe if I'm remembering off the top of my head. But obviously no one's going to the lengths that the Whisperers are. I mean, that's the benefit of having Lydia around because she's like the last of, like, I mean, they've all learned Negan kind of learned it. So, but they've been able to really utilize that a lot this last season. I was like, yeah, because it's a tactic no one's prepared for. Because, like, because everyone who's ever probably come across the Whisperers are probably all died except for, like, the Alexandria, Hilltop, Oceanside crew. So, that's the interesting thing. So it's like, right, you just kind of fit into the mode and you hide. But we see at the end, I think it was like someone had a knife and they dropped it and a walker picks it up. It's like, because Aaron was like, yeah, we got to be careful because we don't know if that was a one-off. It's like, it's sure as shit not. It's like, once again, this whole evolution in the walkers, I think it is definitely like, it's interesting that they're waiting to the end of the series to introduce that. I mean, once again, it's going to be open season going forward, I think. Because once again, World Beyond and also because we've seen at the end of World Beyond, they aren't just like, these aren't going to be like slow walkers. Like, it's slowly but surely, like, there's an evolution happening. And we see that there's going to be fast walkers too. It's just going to be about when are they going to start implementing those. We're seeing this slow evolution here at the end. Oh, but I guess, like, I mean, that means for Fear, and the 2 other spin-offs that have been announced. If you haven't seen them, I won't mention what they are, just because, once again, this is going to spoil things for anyone that might be watching this in the future. Like, oh, like, I wonder who's going to survive. If I tell you what the spin-offs are, which there's already promo out for the spin-offs, so I would say be careful on the internet. But either way, I mean, hell, I'd even tell you be careful during commercials for The Walking Dead, because I saw some of the promos for it, but it was like for the next season, Fear the Walking Dead, and, the other the spin-offs. And so, regardless, I think it's such an interesting thing to wait to the end of this series to implement that element. I mean, because, like, obviously when did that come up? That came up probably during Part B because I think Part B had been out at that point. Maybe it hadn't been out yet, Part B of this season, when the final season of World Beyond aired. God, I forgot. Did those air simultaneously or no? I think it had to be in between B and C. Because that's also that's when Fear happened, didn't it? Or no, because Fear and World Beyond coincided, didn't they? I believe they did. I'm not remembering correctly. Either way. So I just think that's kind of an interesting thing. Like, like I said, I think with the new stuff going forward, they're going to really lean into that. And for all we know, they're probably going to slowly creep that up even more going forward in these, like, final episodes, so either way, so all that's happening. Then we have the Alexandria situation. I'm like, all right, we're supposed to be working together. Let's, we're trying to plan out where the guards are and everything. But Negan, obviously, like, he gets blinded the moment he sees Annie. It's like, no, I got it, my wife, and he's taking a beating and stuff like that, which I'm like, if anyone can take a beating, it's Negan, because he's dished him out plenty of times, and he's taken him plenty of times, so. And so he ends up eventually, they try to get Tyler on their side, which I'm like, oh, so this is where he was. Because I was under the impression, like, once again, I thought, like, Hornsby recruited him. It's like, no, he's been here the entire time. I'm like, oh, okay, so that's why when he, like, disappeared. Because I guess maybe those were the only people Hornsby had, because I'm like, I've yet to see anyone else that, I mean, it could be those other people that are there were Hornsby's people, but I'm like, oh, were your 2 lieutenants the only people that were actually on your side? I guess you were keeping your group tight-knit, but I thought he had like a full-blown coup operation going on. I guess he didn't, I mean, maybe those were initial plans that the show had, but maybe they shifted things. I don't know. I was under like I said, I was under the impression like you had a whole army waiting to like do your coup, but it's like I guess it was just you and your two lieutenants. Um, Either way, putting it aside, like I said, I was surprised to see Tyler, and it's like, yeah, I kind of have try to get him to help them, but it's like, no, like people have attempted stuff before you got here, and they end up dead. So people who shouldn't be dead are dead. So it's like, no, this is how we survive. But Negan's like, this ain't surviving, because this is barely surviving. But it's like, yeah, you either live or you die. So that's all there is to this. So Negan gets brought in by the warden, who's smug as hell. And he talks about like, yeah. He's like, I thought I saw something in you, but you're not. You're not a leader. A leader, because it's like you have something to fight for now. You have your wife. It's like, yeah, that's your weakness. And a real leader has to cut ties and everything. And you have Negan smiling because Negan's like, motherfucker, I was you. What do you like? Oh, you want to talk to me? I ruled with a motherfucking iron fist, or bat with some fencing wire wrapped around it. But yeah, I ruled. Like, you're talking to me, but I'm like, hey, I'm not gonna show you. I'm gonna let you do your thing because I know your playbook because I did it before you, kid. So there is that situation of he's like, right, tell me, like, help me out, find out who are the collaborators. Because I think it's interesting too, because if you look at Negan's situation, and I don't know if Negan quite got this across in his head, but it's like, yeah, at the end of the day, you ran this whole thing solo. You manipulated people. You used fear as a tactic. You cut people. You had no ties. The only tie he had was like his wife. And when she died, that was it. He became who he became. But ultimately, what was he undone by? Rick and everyone who hated, everyone coming together and against a common enemy. That in itself was a driving force on why you lost. And that's like, it's like, right, this warden's going to make the exact same mistake, because people coming together, having those connections, having something to fight for doesn't make you weak. It's because he sees it as like, oh, this is something that will always hold you back. Your ties, your connections will always hold you back. But it's like, no, they're what makes you stronger. That community, that's why this series is like always leaned into like why Rick and his community have always kind of, they've struggled here and there, but that's why they've always kind of ultimately bounced back, because it's about the connections you've made, and especially they're really leaning into that over the course of this final season, especially these final episodes. And so Negan didn't tell anyone what he was up to. And I even love that line from Annie being like, either you, he's like, no, I'm going to take care of him. She's like, yeah, if I don't get to him first, talking about the warden. But Ezekiel kind of finally, it's like, hey, like, don't worry, because he's like, you can't go flying off the handle. We're supposed to be in this together. And Negan's just like, yeah, whatever. But he's like, you don't even remember what you took from me, did you? It's like, no, Henry's brother. That was on you. And he's like, yeah, you might apologize, but I'm never going to forgive you. And he's like, you don't deserve to be a father and stuff like that. And obviously you could see, once again, even Jeffrey Dean Morgan, he has his issues with it, but even he has to go like, yeah, there's still that, like, even he admits there's still that asshole in Negan, which he wishes that he wants to show like, no, Negan has changed. It's like, yeah, but it's hard for a leopard. A leopard can't change its its dots, or just as much as a zebra can't change its stripes. But humans aren't that black and white. There is so much gray there, so it's not an apt metaphor in his case. But yeah, there's still that asshole in him, but he can be a good person, just like sometimes that asshole in him kind of gets the best of him. So when it's all said and done, you're kind of thinking like, all right, is he going to sell them out? But he doesn't. I won't lie to you. There's still a part of me like, oh, even with the whole like, oh yeah, everyone being brought out, I was like, okay. I was like, he's got some play here or something. And then when he was like, okay, I'm the one taking the brunt of this, I was like, oh, he's tricking you guys. He's going to make you reveal yourself. And he's like, see, Warden, I told you it'd work. That's what once again, I'm sure Jeffrey Dean Morgan be like, come on, dude. I'm like, I'm sorry, Jeffrey Dean Morgan. Negan's such an asshole that it's still there in him that I can't help but believe that that's still a possibility. Well, once again, showing everyone what he's capable of. It's like, right, I'm going to do the right thing. I'm going to protect my wife. It's like, right, you keep doing what you're going to do. I know at the very least, you may have your issues with me, but this is the least I can do to protect my wife, so I'll take it. But the warden saw that look on Negan's face. He's like, nah, motherfucker, you're not going to die a martyr. So he ends up like, putting Annie there beside him. It's like, oh, you're all gonna die too. You're gonna hurt for this. And Negan's trying to talk to one of the guards because the warden was like, apparently one of the guards went behind his back to try and get a change of duty just because he wanted to be back in town for his brother because his brother's sick. But the warden being such an asshole, it's like, oh, just because you did that, your transfer is denied and your time here is even extended like 6 more months. It's like, that is but it's like, right, rolling with an iron fist type of situation. But everyone stands up in his way. Princess, Magna, Tyler, Kelly, they all stand in front to like protect Negan and Annie, and as well as some others. But it's like, yeah, go ahead and kill them all. But the guard hesitates, and he was just kind of like, no. He pointed his gun at the warden, and when it was time to pop off, he had Kelly. But luckily, here comes Daryl. Gotcha. I was like, yes, because I was like, luckily they had people. The other team had scattered around to try and help out. So the warden gets taken down, so like they're kind of saved on that front, and the guards don't really do anything because I don't think any of them really liked him very much either. So it's kind of like, yeah, they were kind of forced here as much, and they were all having their hesitancy, like, oh man, like killing all these people. It's like, I mean, should we really be doing that? Because we are killing kind of some of the workforce. I'm sure that's kind of part of the thing, but also just the humanity. I'm like, I don't know, man. I already feel bad enough killing one person. Now you're asking me to kill a dude, his pregnant wife. Oh, now you're telling me to kill even more people. So, during the split up, there was some interesting conversations between Connie and Daryl, asking like if everything's going to be okay. And that's the thing, like Daryl's trying to be like, no, it's all going to work out. It's going to be fine. But, Connie's like, I'm scared. And he's like, yeah, he admits that, he is scared because he's worried. He doesn't know if this will work out, because obviously going into this, Rosita was like, yeah, are the kids there? And it's like, all they saw were the adults. Because even I would have been like, no, none of the kids are here. But we find out Herschel actually is, which we'll get to that in a second. But I wouldn't have thought any of the kids were here. And it's like, I guess the whole point is also keep them afar away from the adults. Because if the kids are there, that could be too much of an incentive of them to try something. But it's like, if they don't know where the kids are, they can't do anything, So that's also the thing. Like, at the end of this episode, they walk away not knowing. The only person who knows where the kids are, like, I don't know if even Mercer would know. Maybe he would. But Pamela's probably, like, one of the only people who's left who would know where the kids are. But, either way, there's also this, the conversation between Maggie and Carol, kind of a continuation of the last episode where Maggie, saying like, right, she keeps thinking about Herschel and she thinks like part of herself, like being like, I want to do better. I want to be better. And she's like, sometimes I wonder, was it right of me to bring him into a world like this? She was like, am I selfish? And Maggie's like, when I lost Sophia and Henry, I felt the exact same thing. But she was like, I know that, but then I was like, no, I don't really believe that. Cause she's like, am I selfish because I miss them so much that I would want them back, even in the state of everything, that I would still want both my children back, So I think that in itself kind of speaks volumes. And, Maggie was like, no, you're not selfish for that. It's like, it's going to work out. And luckily they do rescue Herschel, but that is the big question. Why is it only Herschel here? That doesn't make, like, why bring any kids here at all? Because they didn't know Maggie was going to be there. So why did they have Herschel there? What were they doing? And if he's here, where are the rest of the kids? And Rosita was upset. It's like, before Negan could kill the guy, Rosita was like, no. Where are my kids? And the warden won't give any information. He's just like, yeah, you've lost it all. And she just like let that Walker rip into it. Cause at first I was like, is it his face? And I think when it pulled up, it was kind of like his left eye, I think is what it was gouging at. So they're sadly walking away with no information about where the kids are. Maybe they could end up, the other guards might not know. The only people who probably knew were probably the warden, but he was never going to give that information up. And like I said, I think the only other person, maybe Mercer, but I feel like it's probably only Pamela who knows where the kids are. So luckily Maggie got hers back, but it's about getting everyone else's kids back. So we only got 2 episodes left, which once again just feels so weird to say that even at this point in time. I am recording this a couple days late, obviously, but the show still should be going up today. But yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting to see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. I was curious whether they were going to do like a back-to-back episode. I'm always curious about series finale things, but it's like, no, it's still one a week. So it's going to be interesting to see where the next episode takes us and what that sets up for the series finale. We'll ultimately have to wait and see. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.